My guest this time is Paul Ligorski, also known as Heart of Arcana. Paul has written quite a few adventures, not only for Draw Steel, but for D&D 5e, Mausritter and Cypher. He also runs a local game night multiple times a month. We talk about writing adventures for different systems, which TTRPG systems work well for teaching new players, how interacting with gods is different in Draw Steel, and how watching Draw Steel being designed has made him reimagine what can be used for inspiration. I'm John Denor, and this is Goblin Points. Welcome to Goblin Points, Heart of Arcana.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Tell us a bit about yourself and how you ended up in the Matt Colville /MCDM community.
Of course. So, hello everyone. My name is Paul Ligorski in the MCDM community as Heart of Arcana. How I got involved in the MCDM community, I think like many 5th edition dungeon masters, I was trying to make sense of how to be a good DM, improve, and luckily stumbled upon Matt Colville back in 2018. That was my entry point. In fact, I looked it up before, and I found the specific date that I searched for Matt. I searched for Matt Colville in August of 2018. Wow. I started playing D&D proper in 2016, started with 4th edition, quickly devolved into 5th edition, and then, but also from the very beginning, I was hooked, and I knew that I wanted to run games, and I think as an inevitable person who's on YouTube a lot, found Matt Colville, whether the algorithm suggested it and I went down a rabbit hole, or indeed it was just that first search in August 2018. That was it. I was off to the races immediately once I discovered Matt Colville.
Huh. Interesting. I also started DMing in 2018.
Oh, nice.
And I stumbled upon Matt Colville, mostly by accident, I think.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, actually, just right off the top, Heart of Arcana, where does that name come from?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that question before. There's not like a myth, a creation myth to the name. I kind of just came up with it and was like, that's a really cool name. And I did a search to make sure. I don't want to like compare myself to like Paul McCartney of the Beatles, but like, you know, at one time I think he heard the song or he like dreamed the melody for Let It Be or Hey Jude or something. I'm sure someone will correct me in the video, but he like went around to all his friends, was like, hey, is this a thing that already exists? And so I like did a deep search to be like, is this something that already has been claimed? Did I see it somewhere? The only thing I could find was there's like this Japanese or like a JRPG called Arcana Heart.
Yes.
Yeah. And so now like I get Google alerts, you know, because I have like a thing on like Heart of Arcana, and I get Google alerts. It's always just for Arcana Heart. It's never for me. But yeah, that's just the origin. That there was no specific source of inspiration. It just kind of popped into my brain, and I was like, this is it. I love this immediately. And took that ball and ran with it and designed a logo and made it the name of everything.
It's a really great name, which is
Thank you.
why I asked.
Thank you very much. And I don't know if audio listeners will not be able to see this, but like my favorite thing was designing like these little like logos, the heart inside the icosahedron, the D20.
You've written a lot of adventures. I looked up your itch.io history, and there's a lot of adventures there. And
thank you. Yes.
You've written adventures for Mausritter, the Cypher system, Draw Steel, IV, I think.
That's right.
It's kind of a two-part question. Why so many RPGs? And
we can start with that first question. Yeah, why so many RPGs? Well, thanks for looking me up. I knew that. Okay, so this is kind of I don't know if it's a long story. Maybe it'll emerge that it's a long story. But I was watching. This was years ago. I was watching the like D&D live supported streams for the release of Descent into Avernus. And I was like, this is so cool. I've never run an official Wizards of the Coast adventure supplement before. I love the concept of devils and demons, the blood war. I loved the idea of going to hell. So I was super stoked, super hyped up. I bought Descent into Avernus and started running that adventure for my friends and hit immediately. Anybody who's run that adventure, you probably know the experience that I had, which was unfortunately that of great disappointment. I did not find that it flowed well. There were really big missed opportunities that we don't need to go into detail right now, but like very briefly, the beginning of the story is the fall of this great city that gets like transported to hell, which I was like, why didn't they put that in the adventure? That's so cool. Other people since like authored it. It's called The Fall of El Terrell. Anyway, so I was reading that, watching these streams. I was like, I think I can do better. Or maybe I can do better. I want to try to run an adventure or to write an adventure proper and put it out. And I was very daunted by writing something for 5th edition with no practice. And this is in the midst of the pandemic. And so I was spending a lot of time online looking for TTRPGs and stumbled across Necrotic Gnome, which is the publisher. Many folks in the OSR community might know them as the publisher of Old School Essentials, many other OSR titles, and Mausritter was one of them. I was like, what is this? My kids were a little bit younger at the time, and so stumbled onto Mausritter, and it was just incredible. I love the Redwall series by Brian Jacques, where the main character is this warrior mouse. Folks might know of the Brambley Hedge, which is like this really cute, iconic, I believe British illustrated, children's book, basically. So I was a perfect customer for Mausritter. And it seemed so simple to design for compared to 5e. And there was also very similar to Draw Steel. The license was so open and straightforward, maybe only like 2 or 3 paragraphs of text to read, and then the license itself was like 5. I'm like exaggerating here, but only a few sentences. And so I felt way more a sense of ease to design for that system. I just put something out 1 page. It was terrible, but I did it. I put it out on itch, and the support from Mausritter for third-party products is at least back then was wonderful. Isaac Williams, the creator, would put all these things up on his webpage and I was getting a lot of site traffic from that. So I was really bolstered by that. Went on to write 2 other Mausritter products. So that's how things got started with 5th edition. And then I went on to write and design my own 5th edition product. And then, there are a lot of other things that I've written since, many different systems, and we can talk about why if you're curious. But yeah, I think that answers at least part of your first question.
Yeah. I'm also kind of curious about the Cypher system, which is a system I've only heard the name, but I don't know anything about the actual system and how it works or what kind of play it encourages. But I get the impression that it's very different from Mausritter.
Very different.
So I'm kind of wondering what made you jump all the way from Mausritter to Cypher.
Yeah, a little system jumping. Well, I think like many, and probably many of the individuals in your audience, those of us that are Draw Steel evangelists, I think, have had the same experience where we feel the the frustration with 5th edition or Dungeons and Dragons in general, and are looking for something to fill that void where, we run out and we're like, I want to be able to tell a different story. And I love science fantasy and stumbled across Numenera. Numenera is all by Monte Cook Games. Numenera uses the Cypher system, but the way they did it was that Numenera was released first, and then they were like, hey, wait a second, there's an underpinning system here. Numenera is like the highly specific setting, set and setting for Cypher system. It's like the sci fantasy, future or far future setting with very specific class archetypes, specific titles, etc. So I stumbled across Numenera, fell in love, and then was like, oh, this is so cool. I want to try. I think I have this thing where I really love homebrewing material and wanted to try and write an adventure formally for the Cypher system, and did. I mean, I think it might seem like my systems are all over the place, but each system is you're able to tell a different kind of story. Yeah. So Mausritter is like super chill, super simple. It uses inventory management as your class, which is really fun. So do you want to spend these inventory slots to have a 2-handed weapon, or do you want to spend inventory slots to have better armor? Do you want to spend inventory slots to have like a runic tablet so you can cast a spell? They're all like critical decisions that you make that have huge impacts on the way you play your little mouse. Yeah, Cypher this is a different kind of story. It's about exploration, or at least the way that I think about it. But it also can be about so many things. It's a really blank slate for storytelling. It uses a very elegant system and was very, very different than 5e. So I think it was scratching an itch that I had of, I want to run a system that's different, and I also want to present something differently to my players, to my friends, so that we can, experience a different kind of story together. And one thing I should say about Cypher systems, specifically for those in, yourself and listeners, is that the GM doesn't roll dice.
Okay.
It's a diceless system for the GM, and that enables a wholly different experience running games. You can totally focus on the narrative, on the game, and it's a very different experience from any other system I've run. Where, I mean, I love rolling dice, but it's really special. Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Speaking of the adventures, I've noticed what I think is a theme, and let me know if this is too close to anything.
Okay.
But it feels like your adventures have like a religious theme, or like not necessarily.
Tell me more, please expand on that.
Well, I looked up your games and or your adventures, and they're all like set in like it's the Tomb of the Crescent Moon, and which were the Sunken Abbey and the Bat Cultist Lair. I don't know. It felt like there's this kind of, I don't know if this is just what dungeons end up being, but where it's always like a cult in a dungeon, and you have to defeat them. But it felt like all of them were had like kind of religious or like belief system undertone to them. Is that something that was intentional, or is
that's
that
so insightful, John? Thank you. That's something that I'm just realizing now myself, and I think it certainly was not intentional to have them all have a component of divinity or religiousness. But I think so. For me, when I'm a player, I always want to interact with the gods. One of the most exciting things for me when I play a tabletop role-playing game in a fantasy setting is that, like, hey, the gods are explicitly real. And a source not only of truth, but of power. That's so exciting because, like, in our world, I mean, I know many religious individuals be like, that's true here too. I don't necessarily believe that personally. Or at least not yet. I have not been able to wield divine energy and smite my foes yet in this reality.
Let's not rule anything out.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. The multiverse is vast and infinite, so there's still a chance. But yeah, I guess that subconsciously that interest has bled over as well. I also just think it's really fun and uniquely interesting to present that for players. And with Draw Steel, I really, really love everything that Matt has put together for the Pantheon. I think it's so interesting. I'm using that word a lot, but it's true. It's honest of how I feel. Yeah, I'm captivated by all the stories and myths that exist. It's such a playground for the director. So the adventure that so far I've released for Draw Steel deals explicitly with a saint of Solorna, one of the human gods. I kind of see Solorna as like this maternal goddess of the harvest, of bounty. Yeah, and really lean into that in the adventure with the symbolism and iconography. But yeah, that's a great question.
Speaking of the gods and the divine creatures of Orden and the timescape, I guess, do you think there is a meaningful difference? Because in, for example, D&D lore, or at least in the Forgotten Realms, which is the one setting in D&D that I'm most familiar with, the gods aren't only real and present, but they're also very much they're able to affect the world very directly. While in Orden and the Timescape, they've been forbidden from interacting with Orden directly, and they kind of go through their agents, these saints,
right?
Which the humans call them. Do you think there's a meaningful difference there, or is it just flavor?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I kind of had that same thought, like, hey, wait a second, like, why is it that the gods are removed, and as a director or as a player, I can only, like, my permission slip only gives me the opportunity to connect with these saints. And at first I was really disappointed. I was like, man, like, I want to talk to the gods. What the heck? But I think it adds a layer of really curious narrative potential because this isn't explicit, but as a director, my thinking or my thought process is, okay, if my player, this hero, wants to interface with one of the gods, they've got to go through this medium first and maybe prove themselves. They have to interface with this saint first and foremost. They are, in fact, the conduit of their divine power. And, that saint is holding space for that god here in the material manifold. Yeah, at first it was like, I don't like it. And now it makes me really curious because I think it's really challenging to role play a god. We can try, and it's a unique challenge, but I think there's more access to role playing a saint and perceiving them. Yeah, so I like your question. I think it is not just. I think it is a meaningful difference, as opposed to like, hey, these are just now the de facto gods that you have to deal with. I think, yeah, having this layer, this one step removed hierarchy, if you will, has the opportunity for more interesting stories to unfold. Because then I think too, there's a chance, and I think we'll probably see this unfold when the game is fully released and people go through campaigns where they get all the way to level 10. They could potentially ascend and become saints themselves. Right? Like, and that's like a really interesting, potential too, of like, okay, cool. Like your character retired, but the reason why they retired is because they ascended into the domain of the sun. And now they're a saint of whomever, in Orden.
I hadn't really considered the fact that you don't really, as the director, you don't roleplay the god itself, just a saint. And they've been elevated from normalcy
right
to a saint position, which means they're also not infallible. They're very
Mhm.
much just very experienced regular people, which as a director, to me at least, it almost feels like it's easier to role play them because they don't need to present this facade of being so divine.
Right. Yeah. No, indeed. There's a humanity, right,
Yeah,
to a
yeah.
degree that they represent, where you can play an imperfect entity as opposed to I am the domain of fire, and like everything about me is fire and me fire and I burn, right? And it's like, okay, there's a little
Mhm.
bit more nuance that you can present to I'm the avatar of the god of fire, and I really love fire, but I also really love something else,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And now you can have a conversation, you have a relationship with that individual, as opposed to like, can you really have like again, I'm sure some people would say yes, but can you really have a relationship with like the divine that is like immortal? Yeah,
Hmm.
interesting.
Given you've written so many adventures, and I have to confess, I haven't read through them all. I was presented with a question from one of my patrons, whe-
Awesome.
whether or not the adventures are very much standalone, or if there's like a grand master plan that you have to kind of connect them all into a coherent, either like campaign campaign trail, or like a
Hmm.
sequence of adventures, or if they're all interconnected in some abstruse way, maybe.
Interesting question. Oh, thank you, Goblin Points patron. Yes, join the Goblin Points Patreon. You can ask questions to people that come on the interview here. Um, short answer, no.
Hmm.
There is not at least an intention for them to be connected. And one of the things I really, really like doing is
Hmm.
exploring different flavors of myth or different geographical locations and settings in each one of my adventures. That being
Hmm.
said, I think for Mausritter, I could see all of them being connected. That you start here and it's an easy, you can string them together without issue. For Cradle of Fire, I mean that's the only. Well, yeah. I guess again, short answer and also long answer, no. But because our fantasy tabletop role playing games often exist in worlds where there's such vast different cultures that there
Hmm.
wouldn't be an issue for them to be connected. But in terms of the intention, no. And it's really because every time I write a new adventure, I want to explore a different idea. I want to
Right.
present a different setting. I get really not antsy, but I get bored of one theme if I'm
Hmm.
in it for too long. And I feel the same way about system, that I get bored of running just a high fantasy, Western system for too long. And it's like, all right, change it up. So what I had done for a while is like, all right, I'm gonna play 5e for a while and then switch it up, a little Cypher system. Now I pretty much am exclusively running Draw Steel and have yet to get tired of it. I'm sure like Draw Steel is a very good game, but it's not the only game, right? And there's a it's about, thank God, it's about something. It's about
Right. Yeah.
cinematic, heroic fantasy, and it's tactical. Hey, I might not always want to run a tactical game.
Hmm.
No problem. Go run one of these million different games. But you want some tactics? You want some explicitly designed combat? Hell yes, go run Draw Steel.
Hmm.
So yeah, I get that fatigue, for lack of a better term, both in system and theme. And so that's probably really why, more than anything, my adventures are all over the place.
Hmm.
I guess I should say this too. If anyone runs one of my adventures, please let me know. And I think this is true of all designers. All we want is for people to like run our stuff. But it's also so hard to get feedback, or just someone being like, yeah, I ran it. It was cool. Be like, awesome. Thank God, please. Yes, wonderful. That's all I want to know. Or even you ran it and you didn't like it. Okay, cool. Tell me why. Help me understand why it didn't work for you so I can do better next time. Or I can go in and like go back into that adventure like nothing is set in stone. And like,
Hmm.
not to say that like any input is going to make me reconsider everything. But I want to know, did it work? Did it not work? Yeah, bottom line, if you played it, please let me know. Thanks so much.
And apropos running games, I guess, it looks like you're putting on something called Tales from the Tavern.
Yes. Oh, thank you for bringing that up. This is something really, really near and dear to my heart. So there's a story here. And it has to do with system. So I'll try my best to tell the story in a straightforward manner. So it was Gen Con 2022. I had reached out. So I'd been working on my Cypher system adventure called L10 and Gamma Draconis. And I reached out to Monty Cook Games and said, hey, can I run this at your, in your space for Gen Con? And they're like, yeah, go for it. Sounds great. Like they reviewed the adventure first. Okay. And then we're like, yeah, cool. You can come and run the adventure for us. So I ran the adventure for them, had this incredible experience at Gen Con, and was like, this is so cool. There's such a huge community of people supporting tabletop role-playing games. There's gotta be people like this back in my community. And I live in the Monterey Peninsula region in California, which is, not necessarily a nerd like haven. But I was just convinced that number one, there would be a space that could be created here. And then there were some other goals, which I'll get to. But approached a local brewery. They said, we've literally been waiting for someone to come and offer to run tabletop role-playing games for us. I was like, yes, awesome. So it slowly started to gain momentum. It was just once a month at first, and then it started to go 2 times a month, and then it was 3 times a month, and that's been since November, December of 2022, once a month. Usually 3 times a month. Since then, we run tabletop role-playing game events.
Wow.
The goal, or the goals of these events are, there's layers. One goal is to expose people to more games than just Dungeons and Dragons. It's certainly true, and very true here, that the tabletop role-playing game that most people know is D&D. And I want to shift, the needle a little bit, expose people to different games. Second goal was to give dungeon masters, GMs, whatever, directors, the opportunity to play. To give those forever DMs that Matt talked about in his recent video, the opportunity, hey bro, hey dude, whoever you are, just come and take a seat. We got you. We'll run an adventure for you. Sit down, relax, just have some fun. And I know then after this adventure, after this game, you will then go back to running games for your friends. But at least for this one night, you get to be a player. And then third goal was to create community, to create a community in this space. I think it's something many individuals are starved for, certainly true for me. And so that was the final goal, create a consistent community of individuals that can come together, play tabletop role-playing games, have fun, try to tell stories. Yeah, we've been doing it. And in fact, I have an event tonight where I'm running Draw Steel.
Wow. How big is the events now? Because I've looked at some pictures on your Instagram.
Yeah.
And it looks like you're a pretty sizable bunch.
So that's a good question. We're limited by space. Because more people is not necessarily better. Number one, it's always a unique but lovely challenge of getting people who want to run games. And I'm very grateful that I have a great cadre of GMs who are excited to run games every month that are different events. But it's then also trying to find the sweet spot of how many players at the table, and then what are then also the acoustic limitations of the space, because we want it's really important to me that people have a good time in terms of sonically, right, in terms of sound, that they can hear the person who's if the GM's going to whisper something, right, I want them to be able to have a positive experience. And then also we're lucky in that pretty much every event, we get someone who's brand new to tabletop role-playing games. And so we want to be able to shepherd and steward them. And that means, of course, you're going to be explaining system. So right now we've kind of hit a sweet spot of 3 tables, and at each table it's 6 players and 1 GM. Sometimes that fluctuates, but we never do more than 3 tables right now. That's really the max that we can possibly sustain. If there were a bigger space, oh my gosh, yes, like let's have like as many tables as we can possibly fit. But
yeah.
Do
you have any preferred games to run for new players, or that are completely fresh to TTRPGs?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or do you just like, here's 5th edition, let's go?
Right. Well, yeah, I think so. For people that are brand new, Mothership.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah. Mothership is so much goddamn fun.
Yeah.
It's so easy to learn. It's so easy to start playing within 5 minutes. Be like, Matt has talked about this, and I love this idea that like if you're a casual gamer, saying D20 doesn't mean anything to you. Like what the heck does that even mean? So Mothership does a great thing where they're like, this yellow thing, this is your panic die, and which is the D20. And in Mothership, if you're rolling the D20, something bad has happened. So they call it the panic die. And so we're like, okay, cool. Here's your yellow die. Here's your black dice. Whenever you do this, the hardest thing to teach a person with Mothership is how to read a D100. That right?
Yes.
That is the hardest thing in my experience, in my opinion, for Mothership, is teaching a person who's uninitiated how to interpret the numbers of a D100. Yeah, so Mothership is great. Cloud Empress, which is a hack of Mothership, deeply inspired by Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind by Studio Ghibli.
Okay.
It's so beautiful. Yeah, I highly recommend both of those. I'm getting ahead of myself. Recommendations come at the end. These were not part of my planned recommendations, by the way. They're just emerging. But I would say also it's really easy to learn 5th edition, especially but it then really does depend on the GM. I think, that's 5th edition as a system. If you have a good and patient dungeon master, is easy to start playing. The key being just give your new player a pre-gen that does not cast both cantrips and leveled spells. Just be like, cool, here's a monk, dude, or here's a rogue, and just sit down, and start rolling. Yeah.
Interesting. When mentioning the difficulty of reading D100s, I personally, I also struggle with that, mostly because I haven't played any like D100 systems in person. I played some Mothership, but that was on a VTT, so I didn't have to parse the dice.
That's right. It did it all for you. That's wonderful.
Yeah. But I just wanted to show you my D100 die.
Oh my God.
Which is horrible to roll because it rolls forever because it's so circular. But it gives you the 100 is actually just 100.
Part of one of the fun things we do at every one of my Tales from the Tavern events is do a giveaway at the beginning of each session.
Oh, okay.
We have people bust out their D20s and they roll their D20s, and if they rolled a natural 1 or a natural 20, they win. It might be that you have multiple people that rolled a nat 1 or a nat 20, and then you all come together and do rollies, like a roll-off, and then whoever gets the highest result wins. But sometimes people will be like, hey, I don't play TTRPGs anymore. These dice are just collecting dust. Do you want them for giveaways? Like, yeah, cool, I'll take them. Awesome. The ones I cannot wait to give away are the single D100 tennis balls that roll for a million years, roll off the table. You need a dice tray with big sidewalls. Yes. I have strong feelings about the single D100 die.
I haven't run Mothership, but I've played in a Mothership.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we managed to get through. Well, one adventure and one it was basically a one shot, if I remember correctly. And as a person that's not really played as a player that much, I've mostly run. And most of my experience as a player comes from Draw Steel because I've played so.
Congratulations. That's wonderful.
And that's really fun. So shout out to Cameron of Rise Heroes Rise for letting me play in his games. he's basically my main or director, because he's the only one that I play with as a player. But back to Mothership. As a player, it's also really interesting. You mentioning that it's a nice RPG to start out with for new players, because you don't really roll that much. And when you roll, it's usually a bad thing. So you try to avoid rolling for anything, because then you realize, oh no, this is gonna end badly.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's so different from D&D, right? Where it's like more rolls equals more fun.
Yeah.
And rolling in Mothership is super fun too. But it also, I think it teaches good lessons to players, where it's like, you know, your rolls have consequences. Your mortality is, you know, like life is cheap in Mothership. If you get into a violent encounter, there's a really good chance you're dead. You're donezo immediately, which is cool. Roll a new character, jump in.
Yeah.
You know, which I think, you know, is a different lesson that 5th edition, in my experience at least, teaches. That it's like, no, we're meant to win. Therefore, you know, if we die, it was a mistake.
Yeah.
As opposed to that's part of the narrative experience as well. Like, death is just as valuable, especially in like a high stakes, you know, story. Yeah, I would say too, though, for Mothership, like, know what you're getting into, because there are intense themes in Mothership, right? There's a lot of really intense, mature themes in Mothership, and that's not everyone's cup of tea. So at least know your players. And we put, you know, people sign up for the table, you know, they RSVP for the event, and then they can sign up for the table. They get to read like an adventure description. And if we have any, you know, content warnings, we'll make sure to put those like right up front, like, so there's no surprises, that people know what they're getting into. Yeah, Mothership is great. I would say too, we haven't run it, but Mausritter would be a good system to roll. But anything that's similar to Mausritter, which would also be like Knave, right? Knave would be really good. Oh my gosh, what are all the other systems that are D20 roll under? Which, Into the Odd, I think, is another one. Anyway, there's a whole domain, you know, like bunch of these OSR systems rather that are really easy to run. Oh, and I would also say any Blades in the Dark system, anything that uses Powered by the Apocalypse as its core system, is really easy to pick up and start playing within, you know, 5 to 10 minutes. Like, choose your character, bunch of pre-gens, and then you're in. Yeah. Now, I will say, for an individual who has never played a tabletop role-playing game before and coming in to draw Steel, that is a steep learning curve.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Similarly with 5th edition too. I mean, like, learning action, bonus action, movement, cantrip spells, you know, leveled spells, class features, et cetera, and then all the different kinds of spell effects. Yeah, it's wild. Draw Steel is a lot to learn, but it's all serving the same goal. As a person who, clearly, I watch a lot of Matt Colville's Twitch streams, so I'm using language that he uses because probably your listeners are also, we're all in the same boat. But he says, like, all pulling in the same direction, right? Yeah. So like all the rules and all the little nuanced components of Draw Steel all serve the same purpose, whereas at least like in 5th edition, that is not necessarily true. Like, you're learning things, but they don't have anything to do with this other thing. Like in Draw Steel, it's all together. It all makes sense together. So it's a heavy lift to learn, but I think it's a easier experience than 5e.
I think never underestimate the work to actually understand how spellcasting works in D&D. It seems easy if you're used to it, but
that's right.
As a new player, it's so confusing.
Oh yeah, 100%, absolutely. And then also like figuring out like dice mechanics. Like, yeah, I remember one of the very first times I played, I didn't know what character optimization was like or anything, so I played an Eldritch Knight because I wanted to be a Gish. I wanted to have a sword and cast spells.
Yeah,
right. Classic fantasy archetype. And for some reason, I had like a D8 and a +2 to my D8. I was probably wielding a rapier, probably had really low strength, or something. And I was like, oh, a D8 +2, that actually means I roll a D10.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, and also no one was holding my hand through character creation, so I didn't know any better. But then my DM saw me rolling a D10. They were like, don't you have a rapier? Like, why are you rolling longsword two-handed? I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. They're like, you're cheating. I was like, I don't know how to play the game. Like, what? So, yeah, the dice math and dice mechanics are really weird at first if you have no context. So, yeah. Now I'm curious because you said you've only gotten to play a few times, and it was Rise Heroes Rise. Shout out Rise Heroes Rise, so good.
Yeah.
What ancestry, what class did you choose for your Draw Steel hero?
Oh, well, I can't really, for some reason, the Time Raiders have captured my heart. So I always play Time Raiders.
Awesome.
I'm actually going to play this Sunday, which will be the exception because it's one of the pre-gens from the Delian Tomb adventure.
Oh, fantastic.
So I'm playing a Polder then, mostly because of the class, but but usually I play Time Raiders, partly because I just think they look cool. There's something...
They're super cool.
It's like cyberpunk, 80s, punk in general look. I don't know. It really captured my imagination, I guess. And I also kind of like the fact that they're not of this manifold or on Orden, so I get to play them. I can make them as familiar with Orden as I want to. So in some of the games, Rise Heroes Rise run shorter, just basically short adventures. So I get to play a lot of different characters, and some of them are really familiar with Orden, have maybe lived there their whole lives, and some other character might be like recently landed in Orden and do not understand most of the stuff that's going on. Actually, maybe my favorite example, which kind of just came spur of the moment when we played, was we were in a tavern, and one of the other players could turn into a bear, and they crawled over the bar and grabbed a jar of honey because they wanted to eat the honey. And me as a Time
Classic
Raider,
bear move.
Exactly. And me as a Time Raider, I'd never seen honey before. So I'm like, hey, what's this thing that you're eating? This very sticky liquid. And they're like, what? You haven't tasted honey? It's literally the best thing you can eat. And I'm like, okay, I'll try some. And then I eat some, and this tastes good. And I ask a follow-up question like, so this is made from people? And they're like, wait, what? Because I've heard people refer to as honey, and this is made from those people.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Yes. That's awesome. That's so good.
And I don't know. I just find that so entertaining, to at least to myself.
I love that. No, I love Time Raiders too, and that's why in my Draw Steel adventure, Tomb of the Crescent Moon, they are like the #1 villain as well. It's a faction of Time Raiders, so it's Time Raider dense. That's cool.
Do you have any favorite monsters to use when you run Draw Steel or any other RPG for that matter?
Oh, for Draw Steel, so far, I think my favorite enemies to run have been really all the different flavors of elves.
Oh, interesting.
I love running evil elves. So I've run a bunch of adventures. I keep on, adventures, but like sessions that didn't necessarily go anywhere with shadow elves as the villain. So cool. I love shadow elves. I really loved Dusk. And so I was so excited that, #1, I really can't wait until I think it's going to be called Crack the Sky.
Crack the Sun, yeah.
Crack the Sun. Yeah. So I can't wait for that adventure. I really hope they make it. So yeah, shadow elves are super cool and just immediately like so sinister and evil and twisted. And you can kind of similar to your point about like a Time Raider, you can run them with, you can role play them with having this like, on the surface level comedic, but really unique misunderstandings about the way the world works. Similarly with Shadow Elves, because they're from a separate manifold of Dusk. And so it's really fun to imagine like how the world works for them in that manifold. But then also I love running High Elves and Woad Elves. I will say too, some of my greatest fun in recent memory was running Sithrion Oronazir, the great Onyx Time Ender dragon. I ran a level 20 one shot. I got to run it multiple times, and Sithrion Oronazir was the baddie. And man, oh man, so cool, super fun.
You mentioning a level 20 adventure.
Yes.
I watched a recent video of Mystic Arts. I assume you know of them.
No, please tell me more.
Oh, Mystic Arts on YouTube. They're Icelandic couple.
Oh, cool.
That's kind of had like a blazing start to their YouTube channel for the past like half a year or something. But he actually does have some pretty good videos that are they're a bit Colvillian in that they're not about building characters or drama. They're more about here's how to run a better game, basically. But he has a different style and has some different points from Matt. So
good.
He mentioned running for 20 level 20 characters, and how he feels it's over dramatized how difficult that is, because he's run a campaign from first level to 20th, and he said when you start a combat like the final combat 1120, you just need to one shot someone. Just bring them down to immediately die, because they've got the spells to revive them in combat. So you just got to hit them hard with everything you got. Don't be afraid to kill players. Rather, kill characters.
I mean,
if that's what it takes.
That's right. It's level 20 we're talking about.
But he's like, don't hold anything back. Use everything you got.
Yeah, I agree.
Use the worst stuff you can find in the book, because they're so powerful. And he boils it down to it can actually be fun. You just need to don't pull your punches in any way.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, that was certainly my experience running level 20, that it's like, because level 20 characters are so complex, it's like I'm never going to be able to learn everything that they can do ahead of time or even during the session. So I just have to trust in the design of the monster. I've only run level 20 games using Flea Mortals or MCDM designed foes.
Okay.
Because I was like, I know the MCDM guarantee, right, is that this has gone through layers of testing. And so when they say, CR, whatever, it's probably accurate that this is like that this entity can hold their own amongst those level 20 players who again, like, to your point, like can shape and alter reality on a whim.
Yeah.
So you got to bring the heat. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that fourth echelon of play for draw steel. The highest echelon I played at, I think I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I played echelon 3. I had a one-on-one session with a friend who played a level 7 Woad Elf tactician. And that was super fun. Being able to throw some higher tier enemies. I used the rivals. I used rivals, and then I also used the dragon. I'm getting the name wrong, but they're not dragonborn. Draconians. I used the Draconians, and so fun.
I played a level 10 Talon in one of Rise Heroes Rise games.
Oh, awesome!
It's just being published, actually. The first episode.
Oh, really?
Where I play the Talon Bestemt. And
I have to watch that.
One of the features that you pick up, I think it's at level 10, or at least one of the higher levels as a talent, is that first your range basically it extends. First of all, it extends to 1 mile.
Oh my god!
So everything within 1 mile is basically within range for you to talk telepathically to.
Whoa!
But then at level 10, it extends to the whole manifold you're on. And all your ranged abilities have the same range, so you can target anything. That's as long as you've seen it once, you can target it anywhere on this manifold.
Incredible.
Which is you're so powerful.
Wow.
But when we're in combat, I mostly just hid in a corner, because whenever something spawned in, as long as I had line of sight at some point, they were always within range.
You're good.
So and all my allies have already been within range, so I can always target them with healing or whatever they need, what kind of buffs they would need. Even if they hide, they're still within range for my abilities.
Wow, level 10.
Yeah, it was insane.
Sounds awesome. I can't wait. I've only gotten to play Draw Steel, although I will say I'm really glad that I have, because it gave me an appreciation for how many things, even at level 1, a player is juggling. Not just your 3 cost, your 5 cost, your triggered actions, your free triggered actions, your maneuvers. How do you gain your heroic resources? Is it a D3 or is it static 2? And then how do you, right, not just at the start of your turn, but then what's also like the unique feature where you gain your heroic resource in the midst of combat. So you got to pay attention. I've only played as first level. I can't wait to play more.
Playing as a player in Draw Steel is really, really fun. So I'm really looking forward to being able to switch my regular game over to Draw Steel from 5e, just because it's so much fun to play. And one of my players, we haven't talked about it, but I get the feeling that he really wants to play a necromancer. And he did play a 5e necromancer, and you can spawn like a couple of skeletons,
right?
But when I saw the playtest for the summoner, and I mean, then they did the write up of the summoner on Patreon, and I'm like, this class alone is going to convert that one player is just going to want to play Draw Steel just because of the summoner.
That was an incredible write up from Willie. So going back to something that I said earlier about why I started writing adventures, where I was like, I read Descent into Avernus, and I was like, I think I can. It might be ego and false confidence, but I think I can do better. Seeing that behind the scenes insight from Willie on the Patreon about the summoner, number one, it was incredibly inspirational, but number two, it was like, oh my God, I need to. Well, I mean, it inspired in me a ambition for game design that did not exist previously, because he rolled out this like incredible set of ideas that were present behind the design of the summoner. That it wasn't just like, yeah, you get some bad guys at the start of your turn, but I think he used the analogy of like a deck of cards, like your hand playing a deck of cards, and It was so brilliant, and I really like had to confront my limitations as a designer, because I'd never thought about anything that way in terms of game design. It was like, okay, no, I'm well within the boundaries of this system, and I know how to operate within these like walls, but that like, this is such a silly thing that we say all the time, but it's like, we're playing checkers, he's playing like 4D chess, but it totally felt like that. It was like, whoa, Willie is like on another level. And so I was like, okay, time to get working. And then also to, I think just in support of the question that you asked at the very beginning, that trust of MCDM, it's like, oh my God, they've got people like Willie working on this game. Incredible. And he's like mostly the dude who, or, the person who's working on the monsters.
Yeah.
Incredible. Great. Here, take all my money, please. Like, yes, I want everything that you're talking about. And so exciting that we get to see that insight. I think that has also been incredibly inspirational, like being part of the Patreon and seeing the deep layers of insight and thoughtfulness that go into each layer of designing this game. That it wasn't just, yes, we want to make a fun game, and there's all these layers of thought and planning and process and careful execution and testing and conversation that are going to prove out why, on the surface level, a person just sitting down and rolling dice, they don't see the vast, landscape of experience that's gone into the design behind it. They're just like, this is cool. This is fun. and that's okay, right? That doesn't cheapen, because in order to execute something that's like so fun to play and not weird, where you think you're signing up for fun, but then it's like, it's a little bit of fun, but a lot of the time I'm kind of bored or something like that. Yeah, it's so inspirational, and I feel really like lucky and galvanized to be part of the community at this moment in time. That we get to be part of like this cohort, individuals that are being witness to this creation. I also want to say, I think it's really important that like we don't, there's a verb for what I'm afraid to do, but it's like, I don't want to put Draw Steel too much on pillar, right? I don't want to elevate Draw Steel so much that it's like, this is the only game that will ever be necessary. Like, no. Draw Steel is a game. It's a really good game, or it will be a really good game when it's fully out. It's already fun. It's already, breaking barriers and molds. I think that's important for me to be like, okay, hold on a second. The people working on this game are just people. They have the same, desires that designers do, which is like, we want people to play our game and have fun. And I think then at the same token, it has the potential to really shift the conversation in the tabletop role-playing game space. That like, yes, it is just a game, and also it does have this vast opportunity to shift things in an interesting direction. At least that's my hope.
I wasn't really aware of Willie more than I think I might have noticed his name in like one of the Arcadias. But I wasn't really aware of Willie before he started at MCDM. And I've been really impressed with his work as a designer. And also, I really appreciate how just where his mind goes for some of the designs. It might be something I see as a flaw in myself, but I just really appreciate how his mind just cobbles together like these strange ideas that he has, and he actually brings it together into something that really works.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's remarkable.
I was just reading his clown supplement just the other day for the recent news episode, and it's just, I don't know, it's so funny and fun and fantastic. I mean, I never thought I wanted to play something clown related in a TTRPG, but his designs, I don't know, it just looks fun.
Yeah, no, I'm delighted by the irreverence that exists, that it's like, hey, yeah, we're taking this job really seriously, but also like we don't take ourselves seriously. And so therefore we have this freedom to be able to be like, yep, we put the clown out. Squeeze your nose for recoveries or something like that. I forget exactly what the mechanic is. Or saving throw.
That's exactly the mechanic.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, like honk honk. Okay. Incredible. So ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I love that. Yeah, there's space for that in this game.
We are coming up on the end of the interview, and I always ask my guests for something they want to recommend or bring the listeners' attention to. So what have you brought for us?
Thank you. Okay. I have brought 3 things.
Nice.
I brought 3 recommendations. And I will say I brought 3 recommendations because I listened to the 2 most recent interviews, and they also brought more than one thing. So, recommendation number 1, and I suppose there's a caveat with all of these recommendations, is that number 1, you don't need to like go consume or purchase or do these things, especially if you're incapable of doing so. So only follow this recommendation if you've got like the budget and the means and the ability to do so in a safe and like positive manner. So number one, my recommendation is a video game called Hyper Light Drifter.
Oh.
It's by the developer Heart Machine. And the reason why I'm recommending it, I mean, number one, it's just as we've been talking about fun this episode, but it's a really fun game. The reason why I'm recommending it, though, is for its visual storytelling, courageous storytelling, in the sense, not that the topics they necessarily cover are courageous, but the manner in which they present the narrative of the game is in a courageous, non-hand-holding way, but also in a way that's not abusive to the player. If you're like, what does that mean, Paul? Elden Ring, I would say the lore is abusive, because if you want to learn, like I love Elden Ring, but if you want to know what the heck is going on in the world, you need to subscribe to like all these other YouTube channels and like learn what the heck is going on, right? Hyper Light Drifter presents, yes, they have depth, that's challenging to, the depths are challenging to plumb, but they present the story, the narrative arc in such a visually compelling way that's really remarkable, and I highly recommend that. And as a tool for storytellers, for GMs, directors, etc., to play and be inspired by. That's recommendation number one. Number two is a book, The Tombs of Atuan by Ursula K. Le Guin. Ursula K. Le Guin is my number one, hands down favorite author. For those, you might be familiar with The Wizard of Earthsea.
Ah, yes.
That she wrote. Also, a classic novel of hers is Left Hand of Darkness. The Tombs of Atuan is book 2 in the Earthsea cycle. And the reason why I'm recommending her is for storytellers in terms of beautiful ways to reveal character. I don't think this is a controversial statement, but I think generally speaking, in the circles of tabletop role-playing games, the author that we most refer to would be Tolkien. And to shake it up a little bit, Le Guin offers a uniquely holistic and contemporary approach in her writing that does not exist in Tolkien. Not to say that like Tolkien is bad. Tolkien is Tolkien, and I love him, and I love his work. But I think in a way that's very useful for the games we run, reading fantasy authors aside from him can offer great insight and opportunities, things to steal, basically, like how do you reveal character? I highly recommend Tombs of Atuan by Ursula K. Le Guin. Okay. John, my final recommendation.
Yes.
And I hope this is also not controversial. Again, there's a caveat here, which is only do this if you can and if it's safe to do so. But I want to encourage people playing games to be holistic in their approach. And that means, like people especially, because I presume probably the individuals watching or listening to you are directors. And so in the online space for directors, for DMs, for GMs, there's a lot, probably an overabundance of material about improving our abilities that, focus exclusively on the mind, honing the intellect, developing more practiced and refined mental skills. Like here's how to run more exciting combat. Here's, a new house rule that will engage your players. I want to encourage directors and really anybody in tabletop role-playing games, basically, to move your body. Take breaks in sessions. At a halfway point, get up and move around. Encourage your players to do so. But I think also, and I only say this because this has been my experience, and this might not work for everybody. Again, there's a caveat that, like, if you can move your body, like you should. If you can go outside and it's safe to do so, like, and it's positive experience, you should. That's what I'm saying. Improving my, like, somatic, physical body improved my, like, ability to run games. Sly Flourish talks about this sometimes, where he's like, just take a walk. If you're stuck, take a walk. And so I want to encourage that. I think that's really what, like, this whole final recommendation is boiling down to, is take a walk outside. leave your phone, go out into the world and experience it without filter, without interruption, and do so on a regular basis. And I think they're like, don't do it just because there are rewards. There are rewards, but I think, a more holistic approach to improving ourselves will result in better stories that we can tell at the table with our friends, whether it's virtual or in person.
Wow. Almost powerful stuff, basically.
That's my soapbox.
Thank you so much, Paul, for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much, John. There's a great interview, great questions,
great answers, and great recommendations.
Thank you.
Again, thank you so much, Paul, for coming on. I really enjoyed his insight into getting new people into the hobby. I, as probably many of you, want to share this wonderful hobby of ours with as many people as possible, and introducing them through using a simpler system might be what hooks them. I also want to thank Ananam for submitting questions for Paul. Paying patrons can submit questions for upcoming guests. Link to join the Patreon can be found in the episode description. If you want to be featured on Goblin Points or know of someone else who should be, leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify, or send me an email on tips@goblinpoints.com. Links to the MCDM Discord server, the subreddits for MCDM and Draw Steel, the YouTube channels of Matt and MCDM, the complete link section, and this script is in the show notes. It's also on goblinpoints.com. Next episode is on the 5th. That'll be the roundup episode with everything that's happened in May. See you next time. Snackis.